Chris, I'm so sick and tired of logging into YouTube and having it take the English language that I think I've set up as my YouTube default language, and it keeps taking it and turning it into a language called Catalana. And so this morning, I had had enough. So I tried to investigate why YouTube keeps taking English. Like I log in as us Decoded Podcast, and even sometimes when I log in as myself, log in and it's English, and then 2 seconds later it switches over to Catalana, which is a language closely related to Castilian Spanish and widely spoken in Catalonia and parts of southern France. I've had enough, YouTube. I want my English back because that's what I think is my default language. I'm just so annoyed. So that's how I started my Sunday morning.
So the view in YouTube has translated into Catalana? So the whole page is in that language?
The whole page is in Catalana, and the only reason I know how to fix it is because a couple of times before I've had to I know where to go down to the bottom where I can find where the language setting is, but I'm annoyed because I spend more time. I should just learn Castilian Spanish because I have no idea how to keep it from switching over.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that.
So I wanted to hit you with that. And the second thing, what's got me feeling good is this stuff right here, this beverage. I'm calling it the Hulk Smash EDU Serum. So if you drink this stuff, if you drink 25 ounces of it, it'll pump you up, man, and get you ready to Hulk smash any educational concept your heart desires.
Is it
I'm not giving that recipe away.
No, it's all good. But is it also sort of like you have to drink it every 30 minutes? That's just the way EDU is. You need constant. You put that in a Camelback pack, so you're just constantly sipping it. Just you feel like your literacy lesson is kind of flagging a little bit. And you're like,
that's funny. Oh, kids turn away. I have something I must do now.
Yeah, I must. They turn back around, and you're just okay. Literacy time. Let's do this. Did y'all bring your EDU Camelback packs? Do you know those Camelback? Have you seen those?
I do, yeah. I think it's funnier that I'm not willing to give that away for free. Like this, if you want this, people, you're going to have to buy that. I'm not giving this away.
Secret sauce.
This is like what everybody's going to hate Decoded Podcast Publishing for. They're going to be like, damn. He gives away his nonsense on blog posts and podcasts and vlogs about Hulk Smash EDU, but he won't tell us about the serum.
Welcome to the Decoded paywall.
There you go. You finally hit the wall.
We just made Decoded freemium.
Freemium. Unbelievable. Come on. Okay. You said you wanted to hit me up with something this morning.
I wanted to follow up with just the empathy. Remember I sent that link to you about the dude that could hear color, that tech. And I said there were some other really interesting bits in there, in that podcast from TED Ed Radio. And one of the other pieces in there that I just wanted to share that kind of I got to talking with my colleagues about this. So, I know, maybe whoever's listening might know that part of my day is spent working with students that are on the autism spectrum, and several of them are nonverbal, so they're not creating words themselves per se. They're using their iPads, and there's a voice. There's a voice creator that's on there. I think one of them is called Proloquo. There's a couple other ones as well. And it's interesting how hearing the voice that comes out of that iPad in your environment. So I'll take this in a different space. often when I'm here at home, or maybe you've had this happen to you. You're over at a friend's place and the kids are off. You brought the kids with you. You're sort of deep immersed in whatever sort of, jokes and laughing with the adults in the room. And then all the adults kind of stop for the most part. And they're listening. And they can hear something in the sort of the audio from the kids that doesn't sound right. And then from there, one of the parents will say, "That's my kid." Like you can pick the crisis out of the air depending on the the sort of like the tone and timbre of whatever squeal you're hearing. And sometimes, let's say the more seasoned parents, they catch that first note and then they wait. And they're like, "Oh, that's just them laughing. That's the laugh. We're all good." And then everyone shifts back to playing Scrabble or whatever you're doing in your conversation with the adults. I think that's a big part of teaching. That big part of teaching, of being able to sort of echolocate, like to be able to hear stuff going on in your environment when you're not necessarily paying attention to it. It's something that I think that when I go back to my faculty days, it was never, ever talked about the power of auditory literacy. Like listening to your class and being able to pick out the nuances of what's going on when you're not paying attention. They often talked about, at least in my program, the power of don't ever turn your back on the class. Like that was the fear mongering they did. And they actually taught us how to stand at the board so they could still look at their class and you could sort of write, and you're like writing a word and you're checking your class and writing a word and you're checking their class. Like you're never, you're sort of in this wide stance, right? That open stance that they teach you in threat assessment or whatever, arms open, head high, chest exposed. You're sort of 45 degrees to your audience. So you sort of do this thing that helps you with classroom management. But the truth of it is, at some point, you got to turn and write on the board. Like Jesus, like gymnastics involved. You have to be able to turn away. So when you do turn away, are you able to pick up what's going on in the environment? So I was thinking about this past week, and I was thinking about how I don't know what the word is. Okay, so many of the devices have the same voice on them. Now, I don't know. I'm new to this program. I don't know if this is the parents have chosen that. I don't know if it's the kids that have chosen that in the settings. I don't know if it's the teachers that have said it just like that. But what I do know is that every kid sounds different. Every kid sounds different. Every person sounds different. And I realized how important my auditory literacy, fluency, skill sets are, because it rattles me every time. All I can tell is one of the devices says a word over here, and then I hear something from over here. And what my mind does initially is that the kid that was over here has moved over to here. Now, in my context, that's very important information, because some of these students, it's not so great if they interact with another student. For some of the students, the fact that they're moving from one space to another when I'm not looking at them means that they might be triggered. Like they may be moving for the door. They could be moving for another student. So my initial reaction when I hear two of the devices expressing themselves, the individual expressing themselves, I automatically think someone has moved in the room, which is a very different type of filtering had the voices been different. Because then it would be, I hear this kid's voice here, this kid's voice here. Now, on one hand, I just become reflecting like, okay, I need to have a conversation on Monday. Can we maybe switch the voices up so that every kid has a distinct identifier? And this leads me up to this TED Talk. And one of the stories in there was talking about devices that create voice. And the individual that was speaking was coming from and this is our smart glass connection, which I love coming back to this. I love that you've introduced this, because it's really got me craving looking at EdTech as to not just a tool for producing work, but as tools for making us better as people, more relatable as people, more empathetic, more compassionate. So this researcher, what they have done is I don't think it's specific. And sorry, the other thing I gotta say, also, I love the stories that they're not talking about EDU, but they're talking about EDU. They don't even realize it. I'm connecting those dots. So back to this researcher. This researcher, what they've done is for individuals that can generate some sound, some characteristic sounds, there's some gestural sound, there's some guttural sound, there's some sounds that they can make. They record them all. So every little sound that an individual can make. Doesn't matter if it's shaped. It doesn't matter the shape of it, whether it actually sounds like a word. It's like they're just collecting the orchestration, right? Then what they do is they look for a voice donor. And they try to find a voice donor whose voice sits in the same kind of bandwidth or wavelength as the sounds of this person that cannot naturally generate their own words. Now, this researcher's aha moment happened at a convention where there were, and I'm shortening, chopping, I'm not doing the story justice, but at the convention there were many individuals that were using devices to speak. And what sort of pulled at her empathy and her connection strings was the fact that so many of the voices sounded exactly the same. So you had 300 people, but only 4 different styles of voices. And she started to wonder, would someone prefer having a voice that felt more like them? Could that increase their empathy to themselves? Could that increase their sort of connectivity? So what she developed was technology that could take a voice donor's recording, much like how Dragon works. So you would have to spend some time saying, I think she said it's many hours, 6 to 8 hours. You'd have to donate of your time to read through these sentences and there's different configurations. And it basically captures all the different configurations of sounds that you would need in order to generate a human voice. And then they take the sounds of the individual, the student or the person, and then they take the voice donation and they merge them. And they use the shape and color of the sounds to change the bandwidth of all those words. And now the person, when they hit their device, it sounds like a voice that could actually be theirs. And I just thought, that's amazing. That's awesome. It's pretty awesome. And I don't know if it's being widely used yet, but I just thought, how great would that be? How great would that be for an individual? Because maybe they hear their voice in their head. Imagine that moment where the voice in your head, however you hear it, you actually hear outside your head in a way that it's congruent. Now, for these individuals, what she's addressing is the fact that the group that she was working with was individuals that, cognitively speaking, they're age appropriate. So they are able to communicate. So the individuals that she was observing. So what that meant was there's a high likelihood that the idea formation and the sound of their voice in their head, there is something there. There's some concept there. So that there's a capacity to appreciate that if the sound outside their head matches that, right? There's an appreciation level there. And I love that because it's ed tech. That's crazy ed tech, but that's ed tech. Think about the number of iPads and those sort of like voice generating devices that are in our schools right now. And all of those voices sound the same.
I love how you said that you connect the dots. And I think for me, that's awesome, that people can see things in different environments and from different places and then be able to connect the dots back to the work that we do. That's one of the reasons why I love to kind of go outside of education and look at other professions and see what they're doing, how they're doing it. And then I feel like it excites me, like it keeps me fresh, that I can, even if I'm not doing it in my classroom, the thought of being able to do something in my classroom or to bring something to my classroom excites me. Again, last night, my kids and I were watching the NHL All-Star game. And at the game, the players were wearing chips somewhere on themselves. And that chip was able to provide data about how fast they were going, where the other chips were in proximity to the one certain chip. Like there was so much data that they were presenting to us about the players on the ice. And the first thing I thought was, imagine wearing my smart glasses at a sporting event where all this information was available to me, the viewer, as I was sitting at the game and enjoying the game and being able to turn that off or turn that on. Now, why is that important? To me, like as a fan of the game and just as a human being watching other humans do something that they really excel at, it gets me thinking when I'm like last night when we were watching and one guy came in and scored, and then they were talking about his goal, and then they went back and they replayed it, but this time they replayed it with the data being provided on the screen. So as you see the guy skating down, his name is above him with his number. It showed how fast he was going, and it was awesome to see the speed fluctuate as his legs moved and as he turned. It was so cool. Like my kids are like, so that's William, my youngest, said, so that's why my coach tells me to use my edges this way, because I lose speed when I use my edges that way. He was connecting dots that he didn't even know existed, and he's 8. So for me, I'm watching this replay and I'm thinking, so much is running through my head, like math, for example, and you and I talked math on the on-ramp today. The math involved, the angles involved, automatically you could see the other people on his team, and then they triangulated where everybody was. Like it was just so fascinating, and there were so many layers. There were so many layers of data on top of each other that you just get to pick apart what you want and do with it what you will. Now, for some people that's overwhelming, but for me, to throw on a pair of glasses and then be able to have access to data that I normally wouldn't, like the voices, like for example, here, let me give you another example. And I know I'm bouncing around, dude, but this stuff is so good to me. Like it's
Take a sip.
No, I think the problem is that I drank too much at first. Like, look at how much I drank at first. So my mind, it can't control itself.
Careful, folks. Careful, folks.
So anyway, let me keep running with this before I need another sip. This is okay.
Wait, I gotta jump in.
Don't, Chris.
Okay, go.
The glasses.
Yep.
You're at work. They teach us in Teachers College to never look away from the students. Now, I wrote something down there. I wrote down that what they're doing there to us, I've never done that to anybody. I've not had a student teacher, but the turn and write on the board is equal to keeping doctors awake for 48 hours. It's a friggin' initiation activity. It's like a hazing. Don't you dare write on the board unless you can see everybody. And so you keep doing this turn, right, turn. It's the same as doctors. You're going to stay awake and you're going to learn everything that comes in the emergency room for 2 days because we can do that to you. And if you don't, you fail and you won't be a doctor. Mm-hmm. Now, I've got some quality words for that whole idea and concept, but I'm going to skip over it because it's not appropriate for Decoded Podcast.
That's After Dark.
Now, I'm taking that and I'm attaching the glasses to it. What if I'm in my classroom and I'm wearing my smart glasses and the students in my room who have iPads that all sound the same? What if those iPads can connect with my glasses so that if Jimmy, who normally sits in the front left-hand side of the room, is talking with his iPad, he gets up and he moves to the back of the room, my glasses will tell me where Jimmy is. So when Jimmy talks with his iPad and I'm writing on the board, on the glasses, as I'm hearing Jimmy, it says at the top, Jimmy speaking. I can just say, Jimmy, you're not doing your math. You're talking about what you did last night at home. Get back to work, please. And then Allison, who just walked in the room with her iPad, starts like, what are we doing? What's going on? I'm like, Allison, have a seat and I'll be with you in just a second. Or the educational assistant will come over to you. Just let me finish what I'm putting on the board. Now, I think that'd be friggin' fantastic. Others will say, no, you're letting technology like rule your world. It's taking over. you're not thinking anymore, you're just letting a robot tell you what to do. No, I'm trying to do 10 different things at once, which is what teachers do all day long. That's why they're exhausted at the end of the day. They don't want to make any more decisions, because we make a lot of decisions in a day. What if those smart glasses could assist that way? What if we don't have what you have yet, which is attaching a voice to the iPad that the student really likes, that the student then owns? I love that idea, by the way. But what if we just have that same voice, right? I just think that the power of the wearable technology, it's immense. The power is immense. There's so many things you can do. There's so many ways that it can make your life more efficient if you wish, or just to bring value to you. Like, I have 3 students in my class who are on the spectrum. 2 of them, their communication is their communication with others, their expressive language makes life difficult for them. And they both have iPads, and they're not hip deep in what you're talking about, but I just wish that there was a way that I could really tap into them. And there probably is, and I'm sure there's educators who aren't listening to our podcast who would tell me, no, there's this and there's that, wake up and find this and find that, whatever. But I'm just talking about what I know and what I don't know that I'd like to know, and it's powerful.
And there's too much there. I think we're also standing in, like, there's too much there to unwind. You know, I'm sitting here, I'm listening, I'm like, okay, so let's think about, like, how are we gonna switch this kind of up? Like, what could you, like, really simply, you know, is what I'm talking about, is what I'm referring to here, is the first step just going back into school on Monday and talking with the EAs and saying, and talking with the other, because I'm the what I want to call it, integration period coverage. So they're not my students per se because of homeroom. So they go back to their, I call it homeroom, but they're predominantly with one instructor and a group of EAs for the whole day. And then they come for me. And in that moment, I'm teaching my course, but it's also set up to be the prep coverage for those other 2 teachers. So do I go back on Monday and say, hey, you know what? What do you think about figuring out a way to let the kids pick their own voices on the iPads, so they can kind of listen to it and kind of work it through and maybe pick their own? Is that the first step? Or is this something that are we just kind of in the observing stage? Like, we're just gonna, I wonder about that sometimes when you and I, you know, we come away from these little bit lifted conversations where maybe we're just kind of mind blown at what we're observing. And then we kind of flip and move to the next topic. Is there something actionable here at this point for you?
With respect to, like, the smart glasses?
Yeah. And I bring it back to the table only because we've played with it a couple times.
It's not actionable in that I don't have the skills, the understanding, or the willingness to give it the time that it deserves to make it actionable. So, like, if I knew someone, here's the other thing too, like, I've tried to reach out to these people, and I call them these people because they're like, I don't know who they are, where they are. But when you, like, send a message to something or someone, they don't respond. And so it's like, they don't make it easily accessible to communicate with them, to provide them. There's no pipe that'll take my ideas to them, and then they can play around with what they want. Like, obviously the tech is there. Like I said, the NHL, they tapped into it, and instead of, like, wearing smart glasses, they made it to anybody who was watching their broadcast last night. It's there. They made it available for one evening. And so, you know, why can't you create an app that connects to your smart glasses, that connects directly with those chips that the players are wearing? You can. It's very doable. I don't know, like, the ins and outs of like the technical parts to make it happen, but I can tell you, you can create an app, and that app communicates with a tower where the chips communicate with the same tower, if you will. And then you can bring that information straight to whatever wearable device you want. Smartwatch. Oh, Erik Karlsson just had a breakaway and he scored. Well, I'm going to scroll through my watch to his name using the NHL All-Star app, and then it's going to spit out all the information about him and then I can play with it as I will. Like it exists. I just don't know who to talk to. And when I try to talk to people, they don't listen, or they make it appear as though they're not interested. I never hear back from anybody.
Right.
There's no loop, right? So you never hear back. But so for me, what's actionable for me, seriously, and I think you know me well enough, Chris, that you'll believe me. Other people might not. But what I try to do with our conversations is I try to then take what I can from this exciting talk, usually, and make it actionable in an analog way. So what can I do as a human interacting with kids that I can take some of these things we're talking about and bring it right down to an analog level where I can actually like use it with kids, which is a great way to jump into the next topic if you want, about what we're talking about the mathematics and why students can iterate and fail and feel relatively decent about it when they're coding or working with 3D printer. But then when they're, working with a couple of people at their desk with manipulatives talking about patterning, they're bored out of their minds. And they're like, I don't want to do this, or I got it wrong, let's move on. I don't want to do this. There's like, so, as you and I were chatting before, I think, well, what can I take from the things I've read this weekend and the people I've interacted with? And what can I do in the classroom on Monday that is somewhat actionable in an analog fashion that can get my students to start thinking about or moving in a different direction when it comes to mathematics and the failure that comes with math, but the success that comes with it too, because there's a lot of success. I know I'm only talking about the failure, but every day my kids do great stuff in mathematics. It's not like it's all failure, but it's harder to deal with kids and math these days. I mean, maybe it's because I know too much, or I know that's not fair. I know more than I should, and I don't know what to do with that more, because it'd be really easy to do math if I just said to them, you're wrong, go back and try it again. Or, use the anchor chart. You made a mistake here, go back and do it again. It'd be very easy to do that. Now, it would bring them all down. It would crush them. So everyday math would be like, okay, kids, we're starting math, and look at the clock, 60 minutes of math. I'm going to do a number talk. I'm going to beat you to death with the number talk for 10 minutes. Then I'm going to beat you to death with all the other math. I'm going to make sure I tell you when you're doing it wrong and when you're doing it right, but nobody ever does it right. So you're going to all be doing it wrong. 60 minutes every day. That would suck, but it'd be easy in a way, but really hard in another way. Yeah, I don't know, dude. I love your question, and it frustrates me that I don't have the background in that area to make things actionable, and I don't know the people. But like I said, as Roland's being a crybaby here, let me stop for a second and pull up my socks and share with you that I can make those things happen. I'm just not willing to give it the time. I'm putting my time in other places these days, and so I'm fully aware. And in my opinion, if I want to find people, if I really want to break down doors of people who can make this stuff actionable, or at least have them listen to the ideas, and then I can say I gave the idea and I can't force anybody to do anything with it, but I can provide them with some ideas. I can provide them with some passion around those ideas and why they might be important. I could do that. I'm just not willing to give it that kind of time right now.
It's in another space, in a combo that I had had heard this, and I stole this from Krista Tippett. It's a podcaster, theologian, speaker, essayist. She's won a bunch of journalist and writing awards. Really fascinating. And she has a podcast called On Being.
A thought leader.
Yeah, you know what? But okay, you know what? And I will accredit her with, let's say, that tier of, because it's so much more than just saying a person is, dropping a platitude on a canvas sheet and saying, hey, here's something really, here's a feel good, here's a Monday morning feel good, you go team. Hers is a longitudinal study, and she's been at this podcasting inquiry for a decade. And it's sort of like her thing is looking at the, you know, the challenges of being human. Of course, her angle is from a theology sidebar. You know, one of the questions she'll ask is, you know, can you describe to me a little bit about your spiritual upbringing? But then the conversation could go anywhere, and she talks to a lot of really fascinating people. More recently in this project, and that's what she calls it her On Being project. She's included in there living the questions. Actually, I don't know if it's living the questions, living with the questions. So she's intentionally throwing into the mix the struggle that sometimes is the active part. It's not a matter of getting to an end game of an answer. It's dealing with the fact that this question is slightly unanswerable. I don't know if that's always really fleshed out when we talk about doing inquiry in class, that I'm going to support the idea that you are never going to find an answer to this. You're never going to arrive at an answer. You're going to look, you're going to add a whole lot of stuff along the way, but you're going to live with this question for a very long time. And that's a really powerful kind of mindset if we lay it over education, partially by what I was ranting and raging on, as you know, in the on-ramp, talking about the sort of, I'm with me looking at the students right now, culminating a semester. So an artificial time constraint within which a course must be conveyed, and student success is measured by them satisfying those expectations. And the culminating task is you go from one high school to another high school in the exact same credit. The culminating task is going to be different. So it's a culminating task that is located entirely just in that school, created by that teacher, influenced by their department. Yet, you know, you kind of did the funneling of this knowledge. It's not living with the question, it's killing the question and saying that you hit the answer, you're successful, now move on to the next course. And it's just you know, me putting that binary code video out kind of crept up to that space slightly more from the point of view of, you know, I'm pretty messy the whole semester. I'm pretty happy that I make it to the end of the semester. What you're feeling, kids, I'm feeling too. But I didn't push that hard to sort of illuminate the irony here, that what we're having each individual child satisfy in order to say that you are successfully transitioning to the next opportunity for a big idea, is an artificial construct. It's what's been decided is best in advance of what is actual. And I love that idea of living with the question, because it forces us to say that we don't necessarily have a right to hit the answer, but we are obligated to struggle and try and figure it out. It's a very kind of mind-blowing way to look at inquiry. And hey, who's got time for that? Kids got to move on, right?
The kids got to move on. They got to get that mark, right? You need that mark. And then you got to move to the next course where you can forget everything that you learned in the course that you just got your mark in.
And here's the Canva poster. You got to unlearn to learn. So within that concentrated time, we're selling the idea of soak it up, kid. And then we know, you know, our PLNs are all about now unlearn. We're going to unlearn you so that you can move on.
Whoever created the unlearn what you just learned is a genius, because they're basically pushing the nasty learning, because without the nasty learning, there's nothing to unlearn. So whoever thought of that's a genius. That's like a superhero villain, man.
Oh, geez.
Think about that for a second. Think about that for a second.
You got me thinking of the Nemesis. You got me thinking of the Nemesis.
They're sitting in their basement drinking their
no, but it can't be that color.
No, it'll be green or orange.
Yeah, it's gotta be that some contrary color, you know?
And they're thinking, if we keep teaching the students all these things that are wrong or just like very closed-minded, then we're going to need them to unlearn that at some point. And that's my concept. That's my idea.
Brilliant.
Brilliant Canva poster. Unlearn what you've just learned.
I remember. Can you imagine? I'm just thinking the fires that would be set, on the course outlines. Prerequisite to, ENG 3U. Everything from ENG 2D, but you got to unlearn it first. Yeah.
A whole course in unlearning something.
Oh boy. There probably is.
Oh yeah.
Come on, peeps, reach out to us if you know there's an act. See, that's oh yeah. See, because there's a whole, because it's a pretty deep suggestion. See, I think part of the suggestion is that you I wanted to say learn to unlearn, but you unlearn by making space for experiences that challenge your sort of canon of facts. So you have to be either accidentally or let's say accidentally willing to put yourself in places that are decentering. And there's a whole lot of hot topics falling through Twitter right now where, the basic suggestion is you got to get outside your bubble. Like, get outside your bubble to sort of see that not everyone kind of operates this way. So reverse inquiry. How do you? That's a superhero thing in itself, eh? That really is a superhero thing. What's coming to mind? Individuals that want to actually get rid of their superpowers and the suffering that they go through to.
Oh, they want to be more human?
So I'll put it down. Yeah, I'll throw it down. Like the Avengers Endgame is coming down the pipe. And one of the concepts in that is the fact that, dude, Hulk and Banner are not playing nicely. Hulk does not want to come out to play. And Banner's left like, what's going on, buddy? Like, you were so willing to come out and smash. Now, there's stories within the MCU that I think I've read about where there's actually a possible path where they are divided. They become two different entities, I believe. Two different people. There's even a character, I don't know where I read this, but I think there's actually a Professor Hulk.
Really?
Yeah, check it out. Or maybe someone that knows in RPLN. I know, eh? I thought you'd love that.
I designed this serum myself.
Yeah, exactly. But
aside from the red dye, I won't tell you what else is in it.
I know. But back to that nemesis sitting there saying, okay, how can we make education that much more richer? We're going to start to say now you have to unlearn everything that you learned in order to be successful.
And that's why those people, the people who are the unlearn, the people who came up with that, they came up with it, but they're pushing the agenda of the learn. Mm-hmm. The only way that their concept exists and flourishes is if people like you and I keep shoving learning down people's throats. That is just wrong. Like, look at what's happening in mathematics. Like, I'm a prime candidate. I'm supposed to try to unlearn the way that I was taught math and to take my feelings and my emotions connected to that content and to do something with it. Now, the cool thing is that as someone who has a background in counseling and mental health therapy, oh my God, it like blows my mind. Like, how would I, even as a practitioner and as just someone doing it myself, what would I do with those emotions? What would I do with those thoughts and feelings that were established in my psyche along the way? Do I try to repress them? Because I know that doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for a lot of people. So that's not good. Do I acknowledge them and let them sit beside me as I journey down the new road? I don't know, because there's a lot of weight there. And I don't know if I'd be able to focus on the new, having the old sitting right there beside me. So there's and again, like I'm not currently practicing, so I'm not up to date on the literature and the new and amazing things people are doing with mental health therapy. But based on the foundation I have and the capacity that I built, and I guess the way I flex it in the classroom, that has me like intrigued. So you've got people who come up with these great ideas, I'm not saying this really happens, it's just in my head. People are pushing their wonderful ideas out, but they're also in favor of the negative that's happening, because without the negative, your idea doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't. If none of us needed to unlearn anything, then bye-bye to that concept. See you later. We don't need it.
But see, that's my challenge. The suggestion is, like, is unlearning making space for new knowledge? Is unlearning this is like what I'm talking about here between Professor Hulk and Bruce Banner. You actually need to be able to isolate, compartmentalize, and maybe entirely separate. Like, is that what's being suggested with unlearning? Is the unlearning somehow this really backhanded way of saying you shouldn't have done it like this in the first place, and now you're going to suffer?
Well,
I've seen unlearning being framed in multi ways, and I like you're saying about the sort of positive. I've yet to come across, and please, someone share this, that process of unlearning. We talk a whole lot about learning and learning theory and theories of mind and that process, and we're tightening that up. We can speak pretty sharply to it. What's the process of unlearning?
Okay, dare I drop what I'm about to drop? I don't believe that you can really unlearn something. I just believe you find new habits and routines to put a layer over the learning that you did that is not useful anymore. That's how I feel about it. I feel like routines and patterns is the key.
Okay.
And so let me give you an example. Let's talk for a second about like health, weight loss, that whole realm, which is crazy. People eat a certain way, people live a certain life, their bodies come out a certain, there's like, it's an equation. You do this, and here's the result. If you want to change the result, how do you unlearn bad eating habits over a lifetime? I don't think you unlearn them. I think you have to establish a new pattern. And initially, that is so difficult to do. It is so difficult to establish a new pattern because of emotions that are connected, which, how do you unlearn those, right? How do you unlearn the negative things that are attached to the way you might eat or your lack of exercise? So you find new patterns, and those new patterns are very difficult to start and to get them to stick. But once they do stick, you start moving in a new direction. And I wouldn't call that unlearning. I would just call that a new layer of patterning, a new layer of life that's allowing you to get results that you sought out. Now, none of that's easy. And so if it's difficult from that perspective, then I believe that it's difficult from other perspectives too. So for kids who have learned, and you know, for those who are listening, please excuse like my lack of knowledge and understanding around, you know, how the brain works and the chemicals that are floating through there, because I'm sure there's a component there. Like, it's a holistic thing, and I'm not aware or smart enough to recognize all the other layers that go with it. But
I think to call it out is important. I mean, basically what we're doing is we might be kind of dancing a bit, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a salient experience that we have.
Agreed.
So yeah, I'm feeling the same way. It's almost like I wish I had the terms. I wish I had the terms to be able to nail this down, but
no, we don't, because that's not our place. We don't know where we exist. So I was just going to say, like, you know, teaching a child to be aggressive, for example, and I know that's why I threw in the brain thing, because maybe they're wired to be aggressive. I don't know. But teaching a child one way of acting right from birth, like yelling at a child and being abusive and setting them up for failure. And then when they're 13, you tell them, yeah, the way you act in public and the way you treat other people when you're not happy with them is completely unacceptable. You need to unlearn that. I think in those situations, your unlearning is not, like, that's not the key. You're going to need a lot more than just that phrase to help that individual proceed in a different way in their life. So when I hear it now, in my mind, I just think, okay, what they're telling me is what I got from that experience many years ago. I need to now layer over it. I need to There's no chipping the concrete floor, removing all the debris and then laying out a new floor. There's concrete there, but we want carpet. So we're just going to layer over it. And then people will enjoy the new thing. Like, I've been thinking about that a lot. But I've also been thinking a lot about people who design new things to make life better, but are really happy with the stuff that exists that makes life shitty. Because without the garbage, your amazing product or idea doesn't fly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been thinking like very critically of what I buy into and why I'm buying into it. And I'm starting to become comfortable with the fact that some of the things I buy into just because they bring me pleasure at like a really basic level. I enjoy whatever it is that I'm consuming. I enjoy it. It brings me quick, like caveman joy. And I'm okay with saying that. But I'm also okay with saying that some of it, the caveman joy, I'm really thinking twice about. Like, why am I enjoying this? Why does this bring me joy? And what's the flip side? If this is helping me, what are the people doing who are helping me? Are they in fact truly serious about helping me? Or are they helping me because they know that the competition out there, whatever it is, the flip side of it exists, but they want it to continue to exist, right? Like, if my idea about establishing patterns and just adding a new layer over things was easy, then everybody would do it all the time.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And that's something that's really clicked in lately, is the things I talk about, some of them I actually do, and some of them I just talk about. I just theorize with you about things. If they were easy to do, we'd be doing them. But they're not easy to do. And there's a cost. And I tweeted something yesterday about growth mindset. I don't know did you see it? It
No.
was some professor somewhere has basically said Dweck's idea of growth mindset and is bullshit. That's what it says in the article. That's part of the title. I'm not just saying that for gratuitous use of bad words here. I'm gonna find it. And it made me laugh at first. But then I read it. I read the post or whatever.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so
it's from I don't know. So it's a geneticist.
Test.com.
Posted by Wild Wander.
Yes.
Wander Wild Wonder. The handle is @WildWander1.
So this geneticist is arguing that it's BS. So I read it. I read the article about his position and her position. And then at the end of it was this great quote, which I butchered here on Twitter, but Dweck said something, or somebody grabbed a quote from Dweck talking about implementing growth mindset in the classroom. And this is what kept me hanging on to growth mindset. Like, this is what is like, okay, I think Dweck is thinking like a teacher here. She says it's not easy for teachers to implement the growth mindset intuitively in the classroom, and that we've come to see how subtle and difficult it is to implement. So right away, for me as an educator, that buys credit for Dweck for me. Like, I'm like, okay, Dweck, I'll hold on for a little bit longer, because if you're willing to acknowledge to me that implementing it intuitively is very difficult, and that it's subtle, like it's not, there's no like straight up formula to make it happen. The fact that she's telling me that, she's like, no, hold on. Here's my idea of growth mindset. I stand behind it for a number of different reasons, and the results from all these studies show that it's the real deal. But hey, it's not going to be easy. But if you can get it to work, it's great, but it's not going to be easy. And I'm like, okay, I needed to hear that. I need to hear, here is something you can do that's going to help kids learn. That's her theory, but it's not easy. It's going to be hard. That does something for me.
I've always wondered though, throughout that, what if Dweck's wrong? what if Dweck's wrong? I appreciate the point of view. I read Growth Mindset, and then a lot of the aftershocks of it. So her commenting on people implementing it in a too weak of a fashion, other individuals like this person that's saying that there are other markers to pay attention to, that it's gimmicky. I like the banter back and forth. I do. I think part of it, what it allows me to do is make a better decision as to whether or not, two things, whether or not I can accept the ideas that come from the research as my context. So I look at it. It's not that I'm saying that that the ideas are wrong. I right away have to make a decision as to whether or not it speaks to my context. The second part is, I think maybe more important, is that it raises my critical lens, where there are things that get posted, dogmatic, supported, researched, populist, that are easy to put a little heart beside and move on, or to repost. And if there's something that I've really come to appreciate about having more information and more access to people through digital media, is the ability to disagree. Now, the color and shape of the disagreement, whether or not you need to put that it's BS on there, but the fact that someone's challenging what could eventually for many become canon, and for some is already canon, like this is something it's been like embraced by my school board. And I think that to ask the question, but what if this is not correct for my context? What else is there? Is kind of akin to, but Google is taking all of our information, right? What if we don't want to use that? I think it's a similar type of questioning that needs to happen in parallel to whatever everybody is sort of like saying, this is the best product ever. This is the best idea ever. And then in a lot of ways, the stuff that sort of splinters away from it needs to be folded back in so that we can see how an alternative idea is working sort of almost like perpendicular to the common thought, right? It's sort of like pushing off right away and saying, you know what, I'm not going to go with that right now. I'm going to try and do it. And the article mentions deterministic, that it's, there's a very strong, almost existential decision-making that you just become that person. It doesn't have to be about the experiences that you open yourself up to. You can just shift and say, nope, I'm going to do that. That's how we are. That's our squishy biological parts. That's what we're capable of doing. So I like for one, the fact that it can be challenged and you can challenge directly. What I really dig in this, though, is that it also reinforces the fact that we should be asking the harder questions of the individuals that by their choice and others' choice have lifted them up to these, going back there, the thought leaders. I think it's important. We've seen that in our past week as well, in our feeds. There's been a lot of people pushing back on each other, pushing off, pushing back.
Pushing. Yeah.
Just pushing. Yeah.
No, it's good. I enjoy that. I don't know why. I think it gets me thinking, and I enjoy that. Is it okay with you if I want to make a comment about that article again, the growth mindset thing?
Do it. I got a simple one to throw down. Just one more thing to throw down on the close. So you go.
Do it. Oh, okay. On the close. Okay. I think the BS part was clickbait. And I have to tell you, when I saw that, I was like, it's interesting to me when people in professional positions like that use that language. So yeah, I was going to check it out for sure. I wanted to see what was going on. But that's all I wanted to say. I just thought that was clickbait. It made me laugh. I read the article. You and I have talked about how growth mindset could be used in a negative way too. It's not all positive fuel. You and I have played with the idea of growth mindset and using it against the way it was created, with respect to, like, I can't do that yet, whether it be something positive or something negative. Just give me more time, and I'll blow this thing away in a negative way because I'm going to put the time and the energy into making it happen.
Yeah.
So let's not pretend that it can all be used for positive. It can be used for negative as well. Wow, I'm really on the anti-hero thing today, eh?
You know what? It's sometimes you get an edge on it and you want to pull it apart.
I think it's me dealing with a lot of things that I should unlearn around being human and treating people properly. I just feel like, because if you want to go just a titch deeper before you close, you know, like I'm kind of starting my emotions around mathematics and why I dislike mathematics. They're starting to rise because my being knows that I'm ready to deal with them now. You know, I'm ready. The best thing I did was to write that blog post about being a person who dislikes math, because what it's done is it's allowed me to come to terms with certain things about me that that are sitting beside me now as I talk to you. And those emotions that are coming up, they want me to push back hard. And so the anti-hero, it's really easy for that part of any person to run with anything, because it's just destruction, and you don't think. It's the animal brain, the reptilian brain, right, that kicks in, fight or flight, and you just freaking attack. So right now I'm playing with the two. And before you drop, I just wanted to say a big thumbs up to Sunil Singh on Twitter for a post that he tweeted out about. It's called Mathematics, Be a Traveler, Not a Tourist, which I read yesterday, which really brought me some joy around teaching mathematics and learning mathematics, and also being able to make connections to anything I do in life, and about considering his idea of whether I'm a tourist in that space or a traveler in that space. And then that piggybacked or allowed me to jump into an article written by Lisa Ann Floyd called Carrying On: Momentum Surrounding Coding. And I was able to find in her blog post a really awesome quote from Seymour Papert that got me thinking about why kids are so willing to go and try things like coding and then fail miserably there and still be okay with it and pick up and move on, and not be able to have that same openness to dislike or failure when they're doing mathematics, like without the gimmicky stuff around it. Anyway, so I just wanted to send a thumbs up out to those people for providing me with some thought fuel that I think I'm going to be carrying with me for the next little bit.
Cool, man. I wanted to do you think, let's just land on voice ed for a sec?
Okay.
So it's my connection, your connection, the fact that you and I made a connection, large parts of the work that we have done has been connected with voice ed radio. So, I see this morning the post out from Stephen Hurley, some thank you, some kudos to, some of the peeps many peeps, all the peeps, but just sort of mentioning, we're sort of, is it 2-year anniversary? I think it was mentioning the 2-year anniversary. I have to actually go back to the tweets, but I think that's what it is.
2 years of soft launch.
2 years of soft launch. So it's funny. It's got me. And congratulations to the voice ed community. Congratulations to Stephen Hurley. Congratulations, Roland, for being a part of this. And but you know what? It's got me thinking about, what was it like before voice ed? Like, you get sort of down the path of, this is the place, this is the hub, this is where some of the people are posting in there, the mentions on Twitter, like how grateful they are, and it's an amazing space for discussion, and they've met a lot of really interesting people. I have a couple reflections coming out of that. One is, I'm wondering, what was it like? What was it like? What was my PLN like before voice ed? So I'm trying to do sort of like either, impact analysis or gap analysis. That's the first part. The second part is the number of people that are in this room that I still really don't know, that I actually haven't met. I have not met. There's very few of them that there's a list that I would say I've had a extended conversation with about the work that they're doing, the things that are fascinating to me. And that just, it got me thinking about the kind of the silo within the silo, that you can still be a part of this group and still not be connecting with all the ideas in there. And I also was just thinking about the whole, and somebody posted in there, that there's some driver in there, like, what's next? What's next? Hey, what does voice ed have to unlearn in order to learn something? No, we won't even go there. But that idea, someone posted that too. What's next? What have you been thinking? Did you have any thoughts when you saw that note from Hurley popping out?
You know what, I was able to go down memory lane, and I remembered talking to Stephen on my podcast, Roland Chidiac Connects.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he dropped, he's like, I'm working on something big. I've got something floating around. He had the idea, and I could hear the passion in his voice, which is because that dude is passionate 24/7. So the fact that I could hear it like loud and clear was like, uh-oh, something big's going to happen here. I remember him kind of introducing it to me, the idea that this was going to happen. This is what I'm working on. And honest to God, I remember thinking this is going to be big, because Stephen doesn't do small very well. Like I just knew it was going to work. It was going to be big. Just, if anything, I felt like the immediate supporters in his PLN would make it float, because he's got some good people around him, and we're fortunate to say that we've got some of those people in our circles too, and we're part of their circles, and we know how powerful it is. So I remember, I just reminisced. I'm like, I remember that. I remember talking about it, and then I remember the soft launch, and seeing what it is now. Like, it's a beast. It keeps growing. I'm glad that in my way I could help with it at that time. Like, I'm just really happy that I was able to do my part.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if it wasn't for Voice Ed Radio, if it wasn't for like the beginnings of that machine, you and I probably would have never connected, because of the whole EdCan network and coming together and talking about education and making it better in Ontario with the cohort that we got to hang out with those couple of times in Toronto. So it brings back, like, I feel good. I feel good. I'm really proud. I'm proud of Stephen. I'm proud of all the people who have been part of it, who have built it into what it is.
Yeah, I'll say in that, the one question I posed, like, what was my PLN like before voice ed? I think that it was my 1.0. I don't know if I had a concept of a digital PLN before the catalyzing effect of what voice ed did. Now, I think it started with the EdCan. It happened so close together, right? There were so many little, like, kind of clicking things, but I would say, okay, so I think as far as me understanding what a digital PLN could be without me even understanding what I was seeing, was finding your podcast. So when I found the podcast and heard an educator fairly local talking to another educator, again, fairly local, I started to, it sort of initiated something in my brain, getting ready to launch. So, and that started the thinking that allowed me to notice, as opposed to notice and then think about what I want to do. It kind of set a bit of a basket or a filter, I guess, when I started to then go through my feeds and pursue connectivity. So it wasn't as passive anymore, as in just kind of coming across interesting things. It started motion and intentionality. So I think when I go back to what my PLN, I didn't have a PLN, at least defined by me. I don't feel I had a PLN prior to the whole formation of voice ed. I don't believe that I did. I had some conversations, but I definitely hadn't transitioned into what I would say digital spaces where I felt like I could sort of grow in the conversations that I wanted to have. So it's significant for me in that way for sure. And then also being able to be a contributor and to sort of meet face to face with some of the people there. The second question that I asked is, who haven't I met yet? Who haven't I had a conversation with? It's almost like parallel play. I haven't actually integrated some of my ideas with other people. They're sort of floating in similar conversations with other people, being kind of like the top of the food chain, so to speak. So I know that I've got some work there to connect with people. And of course, I think about, voice ed, the next 0.0, whatever it's going to be. Because it is growing. It is growing. I always wonder, like, if Hurley sort of sits there some morning and just kind of goes, what the heck? Holy crap. Look what I've done. Like, just in that sort of amazement, like, sort of, and has a little bit of, like, nervous energy. Like what have I done? I know he digs it. The dude's deep. But I also wonder about sometimes that human reaction. I look at my number of feeds. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And then I start dropping feeds. He can't do that. It's got to keep growing. Imagine he just says, I'm having a bit of a stressful day, and he drops 5 of the podcasts. He's like, yeah, it's too much. It's too much. I can't. My notifications are going off the hook.
Or the email back to, Joe Blow. Sorry. I'm not updating your feed for the next couple of weeks. I'm taking a vacation from your podcast because it's just too much.
It's too much. I don't think Hurley's never going to do that. I don't believe that at all. We're just playing, Stephen. We're just playing.
He lives for it. Come on. Like, I've known Stephen for many years. Mm-hmm. And before Voice Ed Radio, he was on, I think it was called DS Radio 106 or something, online. It was an online radio station where he would come on and he would take over, not like he would take a spot that was open and he would do a radio thing. He'd play music, he'd talk to people, he'd talk about different ideas and different topics. He's always been a radio dude. So this is like, it was a natural evolution for him to jump into this. And I think it's needed. Like, I think the EDU space, there's a lot of good things, but we're also missing a lot of things, like wearable technology. I think every teacher who graduates from the faculty should get some piece of tech that they can wear on them that will make doing their job better, make their job more efficient, make their job, if it's about building relationships, if it's about empathy and perspective, then, I think that's the next 0.0 for me.
I think we've established some ways to think about it. I think in our combos that make it a lot more accessible than previous conversations I've had. It is a bit of a leap, but I think you and I have found some really interesting direct applications to our current practice where that would work just fine.
Every time we talk about those glasses, I just want to go to the website and buy them. And then my brain stops and says, can you really afford to drop that cash there? Yeah. Really, Roland?
Yeah.
It breaks my heart. But I don't know, the more we talk about it, the closer I get to hitting the buy button. You know what I want from them? And I think I'm going to reach out to them. Customer service. Those people respond. Because when they see the money, they'll respond. They want my money. I'm just going to say to them, like, what's the plan going forward? Like, it can tell me that my wife just texted me, make sure to buy bread after work. As I'm talking to you, I can see that message. But what are the iterations that you're planning? Like, is that where it's just going to start and stop? Because if it's going to start and stop there, no thanks. I'd rather just pull out my phone and read the text from my wife. Right. But I'd like to hear about the iterations of this device and how it can move forward to continue to be awesome. Because I think it's awesome that I can be talking to you and not have to take my eyes off of you, or like my attention doesn't have to be pulled away from you because my phone in my back pocket is vibrating.
Right.
And I know that was a big thing for Google Glass. I remember that. They talked about that, making human interactions more human because you weren't always focused on your device. Mm-hmm. And now just the messages would come. So you just see it and just keep rolling, right? So when I've gone to visit their site a few times, and what they are offering is good, but like, is that it? And if they don't tell me that, if they don't give me answers, then I might not want to put my money there. But the idea is great, and they have a product that's like, it's fashionable, like they look like normal like they look like normal glasses. They don't look spaced out like Google Glass. And I'm really interested, but I'm a cautious early adopter. You know what I mean? Like, I want in, but money doesn't come easy. I work hard for my money, so I don't want to just toss it away. Anyway, here we go again. We were shutting down, and now we're ramping up. I think I'm gonna need a sip of this. Kick me back into high gear as I go to deal with my kids.
Yep. Today's sort of today's my day, like your Friday. So I got to get comments and marks and final things ready to post for tomorrow morning. So I'll be committed to that. And I got to go shovel. So there's last night. Yeah, we got a couple inches, it looks like, in the driveway. So
every now and then, you probably didn't notice because you were hip deep in the convo, but I turn and look because I've got a window right there. And I just see it's like a mini snowstorm here in Waterloo right now, which is awesome.
We got sun. I can see it's bright outside, but last night, yeah, we got a little bit of snow.
We might go skiing later today, which would be awesome with this kind of snow.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to drop one more thing. I wanted to say big thumbs up to you for jumping into vlogging and producing content for the binary portion of the Decoded Podcast YouTube site. I'll tell you why. It brings me joy that you're producing. It's like next level. It's next level reflection and storytelling, which sounds so backwards because it's not. But for people like you and I who, you know, we blog, we podcast, and now we're sucking the video in. I love it. Like, I think for me, it's exciting because it is what's going to come next.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to come next? Like when you've hit a point where you're like, okay, well, I can write it down. I can just say it. I can just capture it in a video format. What is next? Is there a next? I'm excited for that. Like, I'm excited of what will come next or what could come next from the evolution of the reflection. But I think I shouldn't say too much, right? Because you and I are planning on doing a presentation for Mad PD around this type of talk. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a big thumbs up because I'm seeing you drop in the vlogs, and it's one of those things when I see it, it's like, okay, I don't watch it right away. I cut out some time in my night or my day where I feel like I need to pick me up, and then I watch it. I don't even know what the topic is. I just like, okay, Clough, he vlogged, so I need to check it out. And yeah, I wonder what's going to come next.
Well, just can touch on it lightly. Sorry, we keep one more thing to say. Where I think I'm pushing, and I feel like it's a safe space for me to post there my ideas. I can kind of put it into an 8 or 9 little minute thing. I have the device. I can sort of make some music and hang it on there and just kind of push it out. So I feel like my method is, we talked about before, that whole method with podcasting, where initially it takes you the 10 or 12 hours and then you can knock it down. I think I've got the sort of like the thinking about it, making the video, producing and editing and pushing it out. I think I've got it down to a pretty tight time frame that works with my life. That was the thing that was keeping me from posting before. I hadn't refined my process that I felt like I could make it work with my life. And I appreciate the gratitude. You're welcome for that, for me jumping in. I dig being in there. The other space I just want to mention quickly, though, and this is when you get outside yours and my bubble, I had mentioned to you, I'm posting video to an AQ that I'm taking right now. And in that space, my sense is that this is a new way that some of my colleagues, they've never experienced learning from a colleague this way. So it's an online course. I'm taking the Guidance 3, the specialist, and there are prompts that our instructor is giving us that for me right away queue up. That's a video response. I can do that. So I can set up I can have the prompts on my screen. So I kind of shape my response and then I just go, I do it. And it's the exact same process. I capture the video, I make a little background song in GarageBand, put it all together on my phone, boom, boom, boom. And in, 45 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, I have it on YouTube and I posted it to the response. And my colleagues have noticed, and some of them have noticed in a way as in, this is not how they've experienced AQs before. So I'm still in the process of demonstrating to a group of colleagues that have never worked with me before this fluency. And some people are digging it. Some people are noting that it's difficult for them to extract information from. Others are just kind of grabbing sound bites. I had one person that reposted a chunk of the video, but with the time key. So they're playing the game nicely. They reposted a chunk of the video. They say, this part right here, really, I liked. And they had taken the video and sort of reduced it according to the start time. And they say, the thing that you mentioned here, I thought that's cool because that's taking my idea. And now we're talking the same language. We're using the tools in this space where other people are typing, other people have put GIFs in and stuff like that. So there's some interesting digital expansion in this space. I've never been in an AQ, a digital AQ, where anyone has ever posted video of their own before. So I'll keep you posted. It's cool though. I don't mind being the outlier on that because I feel like I'm being authentic and producing something that is on point to the questions at hand. So it'll work out just fine.
And your talk about posting video on as in responses in an AQ has me thinking, because I'm supposed to be doing an AQ in April, and it's got me thinking about totally responding and providing information in a completely different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate that. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. You push me, I push you. Let's make something better.
Right on.
Okay, man.
Have a good one.
You too. Take care, man.